Hello everyone, back tuning in to today's second video, doing GWV Sunday Round-Up for today's second video. So this is going to be your Sunday afternoon eclectic mix of this and that. We're going to be looking at sun activity, sea surface temperature anomalies, ENSO, Arctic Oscillation, Northern Atlantic Oscillation, got news on the QBO, and we'll be having a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days as well. Got a bit of a deluge coming up, more about that in the second part of the video. We've released our second batch of autumn analogues, so that video is currently here on the homepage at GWV.com, and later on today it will be placed on the autumn updates page. There'll be a written summary that goes with that as well. That will be some time this evening. Loads to get on with today, so we better crack on. And this is how the solar disk is looking on our side of this today from solarham.net. Spotless. We haven't got any sunspots on the solar disk at the moment. Having a long run of spotlessness, actually more on that in a moment. So because there's no sunspots, solar activity is therefore at very low levels, and Solarham is forecasting that solar activity will remain at very low levels for the next 3 weeks. And I haven't got the GWV Sunday Round-Up solar activity tracker this week. That's having a rest. But we have got this sent through by our good friend Richard Trott. So this is showing the days of sunspots on a yearly sort of basis. So you can see last year, 2018, we had 221 days without any sunspots. That is 61%. It was 61% of the year. For 2019 so far, we're not halfway through the year quite yet, but for 2019 so far, I had 94 days without any sunspots, which is 59% of the year. So very much on a par, really, with the weak solar activity that we had during last year. It's a stretch of 21 days so far without any sunspots. So we're at 3 weeks now without any sunspots at all. That's the current stretch of spotless days. And with Solarham reporting that solar activity will remain at very low levels for the next 3 days at least, it's possible we might get a 4-week stretch, might get a month stretch without any sunspots. This is kind of thing you expect when you get into solar minimum, of course. So been around solar minimum for some time, but this might be the drop into true solar minimum. When you get to true solar minimum, you tend to get several weeks without any sunspots. Can sometimes go on for several months actually. So we shall see, but certainly at the moment we've got a 3-week stretch without any sunspots, and that it might stretch to 4 weeks. We shall know next week whether we have stretched this out to a 4-week run without sunspots. The solar activity tracker will be back next week, and a big thanks to Richard sending that through. So this is how the oceans were looking when we did last week's GWV Sunday Round-Up. Got our 3 areas of interest. Got the equatorial Pacific Ocean just here, the ENSO region. Northern Pacific is up there, and the North Atlantic is around there. So that's how the oceans were looking last week. This is the very latest. Let's deal with the ENSO region first of all. So very little change in the ENSO region, possibly a slight reduction in sea surface temperature anomalies in the eastern portion of the equatorial Pacific. But basically, we're still on that sort of border between kind of like weak El Nino to sort of ENSO neutral on the warm side. So it's somewhere close to a weak El Nino. And that signature has lasted for quite some time now. It's been going on since around February, but been on that sort of periphery of ENSO neutral to weak El Nino. In the northern Pacific Ocean, things have warmed up a little bit in this northeastern corner. It's normally quite a cold place up here, but over the past few years, it has tended to be pretty warm in the northeastern Pacific Ocean. And since last week, sea surface temperature anomalies have warmed a little bit more, actually, up in that sort of Canadian and Alaskan corner. Over in the Atlantic, looking quite interesting there. Cold and average sea surface temperature anomalies becoming focused close to Newfoundland. Relatively warm through the tropical Atlantic. And to the south of Greenland, it looks like things are warming up a little bit there too. So it's a little bit warmer up here. It's colder just there, and it's warmer down here. So that seemingly looks like we have got a little bit of a tripole going on there at the moment in the North Atlantic Ocean, and that would favour a negative NAO. Of course, we know we have had a negative NAO through the course of May. More on that in a moment. But it could be that sea surface temperature anomalies are responding to the negative NAO that we've had during the course of May. So we're going to be doing the NAO forecast for the winter of 2019-2020 on the 30th of June. It's based on sea surface temperature anomalies in the North Atlantic in the month of May. Now, I have not been back through the archives yet to see how this year's sea surface temperature anomalies during May stack up to past years. But I would just say that I think it's looking very, very interesting at the moment in terms of those sea surface temperature anomalies in the North Atlantic. And I'll just leave it there, really, and we'll talk about it much more on the 30th of June. But that's quite an interesting profile, certainly, that we've got just there in the North Atlantic. This is the Southern Oscillation Index from the Queensland Government, which is part of Bureau of Meteorology. So this is depicting the atmospheric pressures, or measuring the atmospheric pressures, really, between Darwin and Tahiti in the Southern Pacific Ocean. When the SOI is negative, then the atmospheric setup is reflective of El Nino. When the SOI is positive, then the atmospheric setup is reflective of La Nina. We are in the negative phase of the SOI at the moment because we've had an El Nino that's been going on, albeit a very weak El Nino, but we have had an El Nino that's been going on since last winter. At the moment, the SOI is still negative. So, for example, 1st of June coming out at minus 7.03, and then going really very negative, kind of like 3rd and 4th of June, going down to minus 16 and minus 17. So that's quite strongly reflective of an El Nino within the atmospheric state in the Southern Ocean. 7th of June comes out at minus 11, and 8th of June comes out at minus 11.2. The very latest number for the 9th of June, of course they're ahead of us in Australia, so for 9th of June it's already taking place, coming out at minus 0.35, so only very slightly negative there, much closer to ENSO neutral really with the atmospheric state. But this sort of setup tells us that the El Nino goes on, really. Whilst we're getting these negative numbers, then we will keep those warmer than average sea surface temperature anomalies going through the actual Pacific Ocean, albeit relatively modest. It's not a big El Nino. It hasn't been a big El Nino event. But the weak El Nino continues whilst the SOI continues to be negative like that. Then we will keep the weak El Nino going. We've got the QBO number in for last month, for May. So this is showing each individual month's worth of QBO numbers going back to the 1950s. The QBO, quasi-Iberian oscillation, is kind of like a measure of the zonal westerlies, if you like. So it's telling you how strong the zonal westerlies are. When you are in the westerly phase of the QBO, then the zonal westerlies are strengthened. When you are in the easterly phase of the QBO, then the zonal westerlies are weakened, basically. And it's something that we look at primarily for winter forecast. It has less influence at other times of year, particularly in the summer. But it is something that we look at for winter forecast, because when the zonal westerlies are strengthened, when you're in a westerly QBO, you have a reduced chance of a colder winter, but in an easterly phase of the QBO, then you have an increased chance of a colder winter. Now, where we are right now is in the westerly phase of the QBO, and it's still strengthening. So this is 2018 just here, this is 2019 just there. We began the westerly QBO at the end of last year. November and December were our first two westerly QBO months, going positive to +3 and +8 respectively. Into 2019, we see that westerly QBO has been strengthening as these numbers gradually increase. So January minus +9.02, February +9.25. Gradually increasing through the year. April coming out at +13.36, quite a strong westerly QBO, and that strengthened further in May to +14.59. there is westerly QBO is going to carry on through the next few months, so certainly for the rest of the summer we will keep quite a strong westerly QBO going. I anticipate that the peak of this westerly QBO will probably be sometime towards the end of the summer or the start of the autumn, and then we should see a gradual reduction of westerly QBO as we go further into the autumn. By the time we get through to the winter of 2019-2020, that's December, or that will be December's number just there, and then January will be placed just there, February just there. By the time we go into the winter of 2019-2020, we will probably be transitioning from a westerly to an easterly QBO. So I think this winter will be a west to east transitioning QBO winter. The QBO should be very regular. It should be like a heartbeat or a pulse, although we did get that strange situation back in 2015-2016 where the QBO underwent something akin to a heart attack because we had a failure of the easterly QBO. Very unusual, and as far as we know that had never happened before, certainly back to 1950, but it probably had never happened going back over sort of centuries. So that's what happened there. We went into the westerly QBO through the middle of 2015, and that carried on into early 2016. Now, through the spring of 2016, you see how these positive numbers are reducing through the early part of 2016. So January 2016 at +9, February 2016 at +6, March 2016 at +3, and then April 2016 at 0.64. You notice how we're getting a reduction month by month. That should have been the transition from a westerly to an easterly QBO. But look what happens through May and then into the summer of 2016. Actually, those numbers start strengthening again. They get more positive once more. So instead of transitioning from a westerly to an easterly QBO, we saw a failure of that transition and then a strengthening again of the westerly QBO. And as far as we know, that's never happened. That had never happened before. So that was really, really unusual, and we're not expecting that to happen this time. So we should, through the winter, see we should see the transition from a west to an east QBO. If we was to see some sort of failure of that transition again, coming so soon after 2015-2016, that would be rather alarming. It would tell us something quite strange is going on with the atmosphere. But we don't anticipate that. We anticipate that we're going to go from westerly to easterly QBO through the course of the winter. The moment, though, westerly QBO is still strengthening, as you expect it to do so. We'll probably carry on with this westerly QBO, certainly through the remainder of the summer and probably into the autumn as well. Now, this is showing each individual month worth of NAO numbers. So this is going right way back to 1950, just there. Had a very, very negative NAO during May, which we knew, but we didn't know quite how negative it had been. So this is 2019 just here. The NAO for NAO number for May 2019 coming out at minus 2.62. That's a really, really negative number. I think that's as negative as the NAO has ever been in the month of May. So very, very unusual to get the NAO that negative in the month of May. You'll notice 2017 came out at minus 1.91. Interestingly, 2010 came out at minus 1.49. So they're quite negative NAO months during the month of May. And going a little bit further up, we've got 1995 as well, also coming out at minus 1.49. So there are more negative NAO months during May, but not as negative as it has been during this May. Minus 2.62 is a very, very negative number. And we have to go back to 2015 for the last time the NAO was this negative. So that's 2015 just there. We go to July 2015 at minus 3.18, exceptionally negative with the NAO during the month of July. 2015. And then before that, you probably have to go back to 2012, I think. So that's 2012 just there, going down to minus 2.53 in June 2012, and also in October 2012, going down to minus 2.06. So you see how these minus 1 months are more common. We get quite a few of those, but the minus 2 months are much rarer. Don't get all that many of those, and certainly don't get many going down to minus 3 with the NAO, such as we had in July 2015. But anyway, really negative with the NAO during May 2019, and I think the most negative the NAO has been going back to 2015, and the most negative it's ever been, I think, in the month of May. That should make for quite an interesting winter 2019-2020 NAO forecast, which, as I say, will release on the 30th of June. This is the NAO observed and forecast chart. We're on the subject of the North Atlantic Oscillation. So this shows where we've been with the NAO. Black line showing where we've been with the NAO. Red lines at the end where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the NAO to go. So you see how we crashed into negative territory with the NAO into April and then through May. The whole of May was negative with the NAO. We didn't get any positivity of the NAO at all during May. That's where we are right now, still negative with the North Atlantic Oscillation as we're going further into June. And the GFS ensembles are forecasting that we're going to stay negative with the NAO even into the second half of the month. So this is a very prolonged negative phase of the NAO that we are in now. Say that very definitively. This has been going on for quite a long time. Been going on right the way back to April. And there's no sign of an end of it. So, again, remember, it's always weather that's driving the index. The reason that this is so negative is because we've got this blocking in the northern latitudes and also affecting Iceland. So the NAO is effectively measuring the air pressures between Iceland and the Azores. And we've got high pressure around Iceland and low pressure around the Azores. Then the NAO will be negative. And that's exactly what's been going on over the past few weeks. Arctic Oscillation also. So again, black line shows where we've been with the AO, red lines at the M where GFS ensembles are forecasting the Arctic Oscillation to go. And again, it's the same story. We went negative with the Arctic Oscillation into April. Whole of May basically was negative with the AO. It did go to neutral very briefly just there, but generally been in a negative phase of the AO and the NAO. Where we are right now is negative with the Arctic Oscillation and GFS ensembles. Generally forecast that we're going to stay negative with the Arctic Oscillation too. So both of the indexes are negative, the AO and the NAO, both negative, telling us that we have a blocking signal going on at the moment, and that's likely to continue through the next couple of weeks anyway. When we get blocking in the summer, it's not a particularly good sign because it can lead to areas of low pressure developing underneath that blocking, and the trough can produce quite a lot of rain because there's more energy available in the atmosphere in the summer. And look at this. This is the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensemble for Manchester for the next couple of weeks. The red line is a 30-year upper air temperature average for Manchester. We're cooler than average at the moment. Generally, we're keeping those temperatures very much on the cool side of average for the next 10 days at least. Might be a bit of a warming trend in evidence just there, going sort of days 10 to 15. But overall, up to day 10, it does look as though the temperatures are staying quite cool. But perhaps more obviously is the precipitation. Look at the rainfall spikes that we've got here over the next few days. Now, this is for Manchester, so it's one of the wetter places in the country, but nevertheless they are very large precipitation spikes, and that's the kind of thing you get in the summer when you've got northern blocking. You will tend to get a trough of low pressure setting up underneath that northern blocking because there is more energy available in the atmosphere because the sun is warming the atmosphere. at this time of the year, then that trough will start to very often produce large amounts of rainfall. It's a kind of setup we had in the summer of 2007, kind of setup we had in the summer of 2012, both very wet summers with northern blocking, and so a little bit alarming that we're seeing signs of a deluge appearing in the next few days, and no real drying trend either now. So day or so ago, there was the idea that as we get towards the middle part of June into the second half month, we might see a drying trend, but really there's not much sign of that now. It looks like we could keep things very unsettled even going into the second half of the month. Certainly that's how that ensemble graph is pointing us into that direction. Temperature anomalies from the 9th to the 17th of June, below average, cooler than average temperature anomalies for the UK, for Ireland, for France, for Spain. So yeah, quite a cool week coming up, to say the least, significantly below average. Much warmer in the east of Europe, you'll notice. Very, very warm over on the east and the southeastern side of Europe, but in the northwest and the west, it is a good deal cooler. Precipitation anomalies from the 9th to 17th of June, wetter than average through much of the UK. It is drier out to the northwest, so this is where the blocking is. Blocking high pressure is up around Iceland, and that does leave parts of northern and western Scotland and Northern Ireland a little bit drier. So the focus for the rainfall is particularly on England and Wales, where some places are in for a very wet week indeed. Excuse me. So this is how the GFS operational run is looking for Wednesday. So again, this is reflective of what I was talking about. We've got the northern blocking here in the North Atlantic around Iceland and going up to Greenland. We've got trough of low pressure underneath it across the west of Europe, and this leaves us bringing in these northeasterly winds. So cool, yes, winds from the northeast, but also unsettled with these areas of low pressure bringing potentially large amounts of rain across parts of England and Wales. I'd say this is the kind of pattern we had in the summer of 2007, the kind of pattern we had in the summer of 2012 too. Not saying necessarily this pattern will carry on all the way through the summer, of course, but it is a bit worrying that we're seeing this at the moment. So in towards the end of the week, we keep these areas of low pressure bringing further bouts of rain in from off the Atlantic, still keeping this northern blocking signal going. And into the weekend, staying unsettled really. We do sort of have a go at raising the pressure a little bit to our south, so might dry out a little bit next weekend after all the wet weather in the coming days. But it looks like any attempt to build high pressure is quite flimsy really, and overall looks generally fairly unsettled with the GFS operational run even going into the second half of June now, which of course we saw on the GFS ensemble chart that we just looked at. This is from weatheroutlook.com. This is the 5-day accumulated precipitation total. So you see in the next 5 days, much of England and Wales coming out very wet. Not quite as wet in the extreme south and southeast. We're kind of like 20 millimetres perhaps there. But most other parts of England and Wales anywhere between around 20 and 40 millimetres, and particularly wet through this area just here, which is kind of like Lincolnshire, Yorkshire, and then over the Pennines into parts of northwest England and northwest Wales. There we could see anything between 75 and 100 millimetres of rain in the next 5 days. That's 4 inches of rain within 5 days. That will undoubtedly produce a risk of flooding if it comes off. Notice Scotland and Northern Ireland much drier there. Not completely dry, but kind of like some parts of Northern Ireland and Western Scotland, less than 10 millimetres. Eastern Scotland between around 10 and 20 millimetres. But definitely it's England and Wales that we're focused on for the wettest conditions. And the 10-day accumulated precipitation also looks very wet as well, so no real changes. Again, this area just here kind of like between sort of 75 to 100 millimetres, actually a little bit more than 100 millimetres around this North Sea coast just here. So really wet there, almost going up to 125 millimetres, that's 5 inches in the next 10 days. Other parts of England and Wales, not as alarmingly wet, but even so, talking about sort of 50 millimetres, quite widely, a couple of inches over the next 10 days through most of England and Wales. So wettest spell that we've had for a very, very long time, and in the 10-day period as well, 5 to 10 days, it does look as though Scotland and Northern Ireland starts to join in and gets a little bit wetter too. So you escape a bit in the next 5 days, but in the next 10 days, between days 5 to 10, even up in the north and the northwest, it begins to get wetter up there. This is how the GFS parallel run is looking. Again, it's all looking very samey really for the middle of the week. We've got this very, very strong blocking up to the north around Iceland and Greenland. Trough of low pressure is covering western parts of Europe. We've got this cool northeasterly wind. We could have some unusually cool daytime temperatures in the next few days, by the way. Almost autumnal, maybe even almost winter type feeling, with pouring rain and low daytime temperatures. We're in for a pretty miserable few days. Low pressure will bring outbreaks of rain, particularly focused on England and Wales, and some of that will be very heavy. Into the second half of the week, staying quite unsettled. I think we lose the worst of the rain, but it'll stay showery and quite cool, really, through the second half of this week and into the weekend. And then on into next week, just rather showery and continuing to be quite cool too. We've gone beyond day 10, no sign of any area of high pressure up to day 10. But in the very extended range, the parallel GFS does start to build up a bit of a ridge to our east. So it has a go at turning us a bit drier and warmer as we're heading into the final week of June. But it's a long way out. We're talking about days 10 to 14. So I think there's a lot of uncertainty about that. And certainly around day 10, when a couple of days ago we was possibly focusing on getting some higher pressure, now it looks like it's generally staying quite showery anyway up to day 10. ECM, it's all in agreement. Again, that strong northern blocking signal around Iceland and going up to Greenland. Low pressure is across northern and western parts of Europe. Again, we're bringing in this northeasterly wind, so in case of a lot of wet weather focus on England and Wales, and the northeasterly wind will be pretty cool as well. We keep this low pressure going towards the end of the week. We lose the worst of the rain, but it's going to stay showery. Look how strong the northern blocking is there. Big area of high pressure over Green. As long as that stays there, we'll be at risk of getting more very unsettled conditions. And into more extended range up to day 10 with the ECM. No real changes. Northern blocking is still there. Reduced a little bit, but it's still there. And jet stream is still on a southerly track, and there's still low pressure heading in from off the Atlantic. This is how the precipitation is looking with that ECM run. This is from tameteo.com. Starting with today, so we have a bit of a weather window today, although there will be showers around. But going into tonight and tomorrow, here's the wet weather gathering in that southeastern corner, and then it just turns thoroughly wet across most of England and Wales through the course of tomorrow, where we've got these purple colours. That's a really heavy rain covering many parts of England and Wales. This deluge goes on into Tuesday as well, particularly through parts of northern England, into Wales and the Midlands. This southeast corner perhaps dries out a little bit on Tuesday, but we keep these areas of rain coming in off the North Sea. It keeps getting reinforced as well by further pulses of heavy rain. We're up to Wednesday now, I think. And again, looking really wet through much of the Midlands into Wales, parts of northern England too. Real deluge type conditions. It's been a long time since we've seen such continuous rainfall. As we get later into the week, that rain starts to push north as well. So Scotland and Northern Ireland begins to come into the firing line with the rain into the second half of the week. This looks like heavy showers as going into the second half of the week as well. So although we may lose the persistent sort of very heavy rain, looks like we'll keep heavy showers going into the second half of the week. They might be a little bit thundering as well. And even into next weekend, it doesn't look particularly settled. It looks rather showery even as we go into next weekend. So plenty of rain coming up. We do need the rain, and we're certainly going to get it. This is how the CFS V2 is looking finally for the next month. These are 500 millibar heights. We're broken down into week periods. The first week period will take us from the 9th to the 15th of June. The coming week has northern blocking with high pressure around Greenland, Iceland, and a trough of low pressure over the UK and Western Europe. The jet stream is dipping down like that. So we're on the cold side of the jet stream. We're under a trough of low pressure, and we've got northern blocking. Basically, if it can go wrong, for anyone who wants dry and warm weather. That's as bad as it gets. If it can go wrong, it will go wrong. It doesn't get worse than that in the summer for anyone who wants warm, dry, hot conditions. This is week 2. It's the 16th to the 22nd of July. Northern blocking still there over Greenland. Low pressure as a trough in the 500 millibar flow underneath it. So very little change really. We're still doing something like that, the jet stream. So still looking very cool and unsettled even as we go into the second half of June. A change for week 3, this is the 23rd to the 29th of June. We get above average heights then building to our east and north. Low pressure is pushed out into the middle of the Atlantic. That would dry things out and warm things up as well. We will start to bring in more of an east-southeasterly wind. Could still be a bit unstable, could be a bit volatile, might be some thunderstorms around, but will certainly be a lot drier and would also be quite a lot warmer as well. Very brief change though, because by the time you go through to week 4, which is the 30th of June to the 6th of July, look, we've got this trough back in just to the west of us. Northern blocking is still there to some degree around Greenland, and so that's returning us back to quite an unsettled pattern, potentially quite cool as well. So there is a brief window of warmer, drier weather there in week 3, but by week 4, we're back to unsettled conditions once again. This is how July is being forecast by the CFS V2 in terms of the 700 millibar heights, normally going for an area, a weak area of above average heights close to the UK. The main area of high pressure though is where this orange area is, and that's actually quite a long way from us over towards the Baltic Sea and the west of Russia. So I'm not sure about that extension, really. That looks a bit odd that we'd be getting an extension, a ridge extending from such a long way east. There's low pressure in the Atlantic. So I suspect the CFS is probably overdoing that anticyclonic signal a little bit. And in reality, you will probably expect a more unsettled month than that is showing for July, I would have thought. It is going for above average temperature anomalies in July, but then again, when isn't CFS forecasting above average temperatures? Precipitation wise, there's no signal, there very rarely is. But I just wonder whether July might be hinting at to be just a little bit more unsettled than you would anticipate from that. And the reason I say it again is because that the main ridge is actually quite a long way from us. It's over towards the far northeast of Europe. So I'm not sure about this sort of weak area of high pressure that's seemingly extending from the Baltic Sea and going all the way over towards the UK, Ireland and Iceland. I reckon that would be a lot weaker than that shows, and we would probably have a more unsettled month than that shows. But anyway, we won't worry about July at this stage. Finally, if you're enjoying the videos, then please can you consider becoming a patron for GWV. We've got 60 patrons. Hello, and a big thank you to our 60 patrons. If you would like to become a patron for GWV, then all you need to do is come to the GWV's Patreon page, sign up for a Patreon account, and then you can pledge an ongoing monthly donation to GWV. It could be anything from $1 a month upwards. You will pool in with all of the other patrons. And just a big, big thank you to all of the patrons for GWV. Thanks so much for all of the help that you've given us in funding GWV.com over the past year. Alternatively, you can give a donation through PayPal. So this is really simply just come to GWV's PayPal page, sign into your PayPal account. Most people have one of those these days, of course. And then you can send a donation to GWV's, whatever you want. And however you do it, whether it's through PayPal or Patreon, you will get a mention in videos. We'll give you a shout out and say thank you very much for doing that. As long as you want. One, a few people have chosen to stay anonymous. If you'd rather stay anonymous, then just leave a little note with your donation to let us know that's what you want. And we're happy to honour your wishes, however you want. However you want it, we're happy to do it like that. You might want to plug for your website or for your business as well, so we can always go to a website within the videos and give you a shout out there too. So it really is however you want the plug, however you want the mention, then we're happy to do that for you. So a big thank you to all of our patrons, big thank you to all of our donors. And that's it. So, a bit of an extended one today, over half an hour. I hope you found it interesting and informative. Don't forget to check out those autumn analogues if you haven't yet done so. That video will be placed on the autumn updates page with Celia with a written summary. You have an update, a little update for Le Mans coming up later on this afternoon as well. So it's all happening at GWV. And of course, next weekend, Glasgow updates begin. I know a lot of you are waiting for the onset of Glasgow updates. They will be starting very, very soon now. And hopefully, let's hope the weather picks up a little bit for Glasgow. At the moment, it is looking a little bit on the wet side. Right, that's all for now, though, and thanks for watching.